and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hope you have had a nice week. Happy Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's on Twitter, YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket over there. Maybe you're listening via the Indy Sports Ticket app. Maybe you're listening via 1430 AM. No matter how you're listening, we greatly appreciate it over here at Indy's Sports Ticket. And I greatly appreciate the drama that just continues to unfold in New York with the Jets. Davante Adams getting traded to the Jets yesterday. And Amari Cooper let out of, wide receiver hell, so to speak. He got traded to the Buffalo Bills. Going from Deshaun Watson to Josh Allen has got to be just a huge upgrade. Amari Cooper's got to be so happy right now. And I was thinking about these two trades yesterday. And, I was just thinking about them. And from there, my mind goes to all sorts of different places. And I played baseball for a long time. And since I finished up playing baseball in college, I've kind of picked up golf. Okay, I didn't play as much this summer as I did last, but I still enjoy going out and getting really upset while I play golf, right? Like it's nice to be outside, all that kind of stuff. And there's a correlation between golf and baseball that keeps me coming back to continue to play golf, even though I'm the worst golfer ever. Okay, there's this constant pursuit in both baseball and golf of having this like perfect swing, right? And a perfect golf swing's it's unattainable, right? Like there's always something to work on, just like with baseball. Having a perfect baseball swing is unattainable. Like there's always something to work on. And like there's just this constant pursuit of a perfect swing, whether you're playing baseball or golf, and it's cool. And that'll never change. And for me, when I was, playing golf now or playing baseball in the past, like I was just always making tweaks. Like for my baseball swing, it's like keep the shoulder in, slot the barrel, hand to the ball, knob to the ball. Like whatever it was, there was always some tweak to be made. And for my golf swing, it's like aim further left to counter the slice. So like there's just this constant tweaking to deal with a baseball or a golf swing. And something that I've noticed both for myself and watching my teammates in college and watching the guys that I'm playing golf with on a Saturday, I very much fall into this category as well. Whenever I'm adjusting my golf swing or whenever I used to adjust my baseball swing, it was always more productive, when I messed with my baseball swing during like a cage session during practice. And tweaking my golf swing is always more productive when I do it at the driving range. If I ever tried to mess with my baseball swing during a game, my at-bats got worse. And whenever I'm playing, a round of 18 holes in golf, if I try to correct my swing or make these big changes to it during a round, I always get worse. That's just what happens. And whenever, I tweak my baseball swing during a game, or whenever I tweak my golf swing, during a round, it was always reactionary to what just happened. Okay, so like for example, like if I'm playing golf and I keep chunking the ball, right? I may scoot up a little bit so that my contact point's better, whatever it is, right? And then from there, like it doesn't help. I start to top the ball and things go terribly. Okay, it was the same thing whenever I played baseball. But making adjustments during, an entire session at a driving range or an entire session in a batting cage, the adjustments just seem to help a little bit more. Because whenever you're making, an adjustment to your golf swing during a round of golf, it's very reactionary. Whatever adjustment you're making isn't based on the past 100 swings you've taken. It's based off of the last 5. Okay? And so you make this, change or whatever. And for me, things just don't seem to get better. Right? But whenever I go to the driving range and I'm messing with my swing, I feel like I get better because the adjustments that I'm making aren't based off of the last 5 swings. They're based off of the last round that I played or The last time I was at the range, what did I struggle with? Okay. And whenever I make adjustments to my golf swing in that setting, things just get better. And there were two big trades yesterday in the NFL. And on paper, they look similar. The New York Jets traded a third-round pick. That could turn into a second-round pick. It probably won't. But the Jets traded a third-round pick to the Raiders for Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers' guy. Fantastic, right? And the Bills traded a third-round pick and like a seventh-round pick in 2025 for Amari Cooper and a sixth-round pick in 2025. On the surface, on paper, these two trades look the same. Two AFC East teams trying to improve by adding star receivers. But the truth is, these trades aren't even close to the same thing. The Jets made a reactionary trade. They woke up after losing Monday Night Football yesterday. We're like, oh, crap. We're 2-4. Right? We made a big deal out of getting Aaron Rodgers. We just fired the head coach. And we're 2-4. And it feels like the wheels in New York are about to fall off that Jets bus. Meanwhile, the Bills, on the other hand, they didn't make this reactionary trade like the Jets did. Right? The Jets looked up 2-4. Crap. We need to do something. Davante Adams. That fixes all of our problems, even though it doesn't. The Bills, on the other hand, they made a trade during a range session. They made an adjustment to their roster after looking at the collective 6 games that they've played this year, right? They stepped back. They saw what their weakness was. Then they made the trade. Okay. After the Bills made the trade for Amari Cooper, it feels like they got better. Like, I step back and I look at the Bills roster. I'm like, okay, like, this was clearly a need for them. They got better. Meanwhile, for the Jets, just feels like they added another one of Aaron Rodgers' buddies that isn't going to help them win games. Because look, Davante Adams, really good receiver, all those things, but like, he wasn't what the Jets needed. Okay, if you watch the Bills' first 6 games of the year this year, even though they started 4-2, it was abundantly clear that they needed to add an elite wide receiver. Okay, it was incredibly clear. And the Bills went back. They watched how they performed in those 6 games, and they made the trade. If the Jets had done the same thing, right, if they'd gone back, looked, not casually, but if they had really looked at everything evenly and were like, okay, what do we need to add to get better? They wouldn't have landed on trading for Davante Adams as the solution to all their problems. If they'd fully thought through everything as opposed to just reacting to being 2-4 and reacting to what Aaron Rodgers wants, then first off, the Jets would be in a much better position. But they also would have realized that they've given up the ninth most amount of sacks in the NFL this year. The Jets also would have noticed that they need another pass rusher. Will McDonald IV has 7 sacks on the year. No one else on the Jets has more than 2.5. It would have been most beneficial for the Jets to trade for an offensive tackle, right? Because they're clearly struggling to protect Aaron Rodgers. Okay? Or they could have made a trade for another pass rusher, or they could have just, figured out a contract with Hassan Reddick. Either one of those things would have been more beneficial than making a trade for Davante Adams. Okay, like the Jets didn't need any more weapons. That was the last thing that they needed. The Jets already have Garrett Wilson, who's one of the best receivers in the NFL. And the Jets already had Breece Hall, one of the best running backs in the NFL. They didn't need any more weapons. And instead of stepping back and realizing what they needed, the Jets had this knee-jerk reaction, and instead of doing what would be best for the franchise, they fell in line with what Aaron Rodgers wanted them to do. Okay, Aaron Rodgers has stepped into that organization and made that franchise more of a mess than it already was. Okay, the Jets are constantly reacting to what he wants as opposed to stepping back, looking at the big picture, figuring out what would actually make them better, the Jets have just decided to make Aaron Rodgers happy. The Jets have no plan outside of making sure that Aaron Rodgers is happy. And then you look at, the one football team in New York that's not in New York City, the Bills. They're the total opposite. While the Jets are trying to make Aaron Rodgers happy, the Bills are trying to compete for a Super Bowl. Right? They've had some struggles defensively this year, but they know that it's because they're banged up on that side of the ball. So they're going to wait for those players to come back. They knew they needed another receiver, so they made the move. Their plan, the Bills' plan, is clear. Get Josh Allen another receiver to help the offense be better. And when the hurt defensive players come back, they think they'll be good enough defensively to beat the better teams in the NFL during the playoffs. That is their plan. It's crystal. Okay? And that is a way better plan than what the Jets have. Make Aaron Rodgers happy. And that's why the Bills are going to compete for a Super Bowl this year. And the Jets are going to miss the playoff for, the 100th year in a row. Okay? Operating based off of a plan is incredibly better than just reacting quickly to everything that happens to you. Okay? Like, that's true in life, and that's true in sports, and we're about to see it with the Bills and the Jets. So the NFL pushed the trade deadline back a couple weeks this year because they want more teams to be able to go out and make trades. They want more drama. Okay, like one of the most fun things about the NBA is the trade deadline because teams get desperate. Teams, look up and they're like, oh, crap, like we're in the playoff race. Like, let's go add a piece. For example, the Pacers adding Pascal Siakam, like that was big news, right? And then other teams look up and they realize, okay, guys, like we aren't close. Let's sell some stuff off, get some picks, get a couple young players, and, we can run it back next year. And so the NFL, I think, is searching for that. That's why they've pushed the trade deadline back this year. So with those trades going through, and, just thinking about the idea of like the Bills have a plan, the Jets don't have a plan. If Chris Ballard had a plan, what would he do? What position would he be targeting? And so, I started to think about it. Offensively, the Colts are in good shape. They are. Okay, Michael Pittman Jr., that's a tough receiver who's made some plays this year, right? Coming into the year, like there weren't really questions about whether or not Michael Pittman Jr. was good. Like we know he can play. Josh Downs is reliable. Alec Pierce has made explosive plays down the field. Edey Mitchell still has time to figure it out. Like I'm not writing that dude off because he, hasn't contributed in the first 6 games of his rookie year, right? So like a receiver, the Colts are fine. The offensive line, even with Ryan Kelly being in and out, first he hurt the neck and now his calf is hurt. Like, Bordellini's been good. Will Fry's being out the rest of the year sucks, but there's depth there. Like the offensive line's been good for the Colts this year, right? And the starters have played well, and the backups, when called upon, like they've been good too. When Jonathan Taylor's been healthy, when we look at the running back position, like he's been awesome. He's been arguably the best running back in the NFL before he sprained his ankle. Could a better backup be helpful? Sure. But I don't know. Like I think Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson have been good enough to be backups in the NFL. When it comes to the quarterback position, I don't think I have to explain why the Colts don't need to or would even consider trading for a different quarterback. As a whole, Chris Ballard has done a good job with the offensive side of the roster this season. That leads us to the defensive side of the ball. Colts have dealt with most of their injuries on defense. Okay, I don't think Chris Ballard would make a trade on the defensive line because once that defensive line gets healthy again, they're going to be a lot better early in the year. Like they were getting a pass rush with 4, then all the injuries happened, and we looked up, and it's like, oh, it's Leatu Latu and Isaiah Land. You're not getting the pass rush with that. Okay, so I think that there's belief in the building that once they get healthy up front defensively, they'll be good. I don't think Ballard would make a trade for a linebacker. Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed aren't my favorite players in the world, but they're good, solid options at the NFL level to play linebacker. if Chris Ballard wanted to make a trade that made sense, then it would undoubtedly be for a player in the secondary, right? Specifically, cornerback. Nick Cross has gotten better, right, from last year to this year. Julian Blackmon's been okay. He could undoubtedly be better. He, definitely hasn't met the expectations that I think people had for him, given everything we heard coming out of training camp. But with that being said, he could definitely be worse than what he's been as well. So the clear answer for Chris Ballard wanted to make a trade to help this Colts team make the playoffs, then it would definitely be at the cornerback position. Okay. Like, I like how Jalen Jones competes. Sam Womack has been a nice find off the waiver wire for the Colts. But let's be honest, I don't trust either one of them. You probably don't trust either one of them either. And, I tighten up every time the opposition throws the football, right? So if Ballard was to, care about winning and he wanted to make a trade to prove that, it would have to be for a cornerback. And, if we look up and the Colts are, 6-3, 5-4, whenever that trade deadline starts to loom, maybe we see him go out and make a trade for a corner, right? And so, I'm not just going to say that Ballard needs to make a trade for a corner and then not give you guys who could fill that role. Jonathan Jones, right, that he plays for New England. He's 31. As we all know, the Patriots are rebuilding, right? And it's going to take them a while. I don't think that Jonathan Jones is still going to be in the NFL by the time they're good. So it makes sense that he'd be available given his age. This is a guy who's been really good for his entire career. Okay. So, but he's 31. So because he's older, be relatively cheap, probably, worth somewhere around a 5th round pick, which I know was a lot for Ballard to give up. He loves those 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks, especially, when he can draft a corner, because that's what he uses those picks for. Budda Baker, he's a safety, but hear me out on this one. He asked out of Arizona before the year even started. Okay. He's not a corner, but he's one of the best safeties in the NFL. He'd be an instant upgrade. The Colts just need a playmaker on the back end. Like they just need someone that, that will capitalize on opportunities to pick balls off and do those things. The Colts just don't have that right now. And Budda Baker would undoubtedly be that, and he would greatly help the back end of this Colts defense. Last guy, Tre'Davious White from the Rams. He could be available as well. Another cornerback. He's a little bit older, right? But his experience would go a long way in helping a young Colts secondary. He, like Jonathan Jones, would also immediately be the best cornerback on this Colts roster. So there are guys out there in the secondary that if the Colts wanted to get better, they could go get pretty easily. Okay. So there are options out there. The question is just whether or not the Colts are going to be aggressive or not in going out and pursuing these guys. The answer is probably no, because as we know, Chris Ballard's pretty content with his guys. He doesn't want to part with any of his guys, and he doesn't want to part with any of his precious draft picks. So what we see is probably what we've got the rest of the way. But, hopefully something happens with Ballard and he, decides to go out and make an upgrade on the back end of this defense. Yeah, because I think that they're going to need it if they're going to want to make the playoffs this year. Big show today. Got just a ton of stuff to talk about. I'm going to do a little bit of NBA stuff today. That season starts soon. Just some of the big moves that happened this offseason that you need to know about, how they impact the Pacers, all those things. I'm getting into that. Zach Edey played really well the other night, and people are being really annoying about it. Who cares? It's the preseason. I want to touch on that. Tom Brady being a minority owner is kind of important if he's going to call football games. I've got thoughts on that. And then Kevin Potts, he said to join me in about 40 minutes. We're going to talk Davante Adams to the Jets and Amari Cooper to the Bills, all the stuff that kind of comes with that. That's in 40 minutes. But when we come back here in about 4 minutes, I've got some thoughts on some NBA stuff as that season is only a couple weeks away.
Often imitated, never duplicated. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Tickets, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a nice week so far. We're halfway there. It's Wednesday. It doesn't feel like Wednesday. Really doesn't. But hey, all good. Baseball going on. Actually, no. I said I was going to talk about the NBA, so I should probably do that before I start talking about how the Yankees are way better than Cleveland and how the Mets and Dodgers series looks like it's going to be way better and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, the NBA, because that season starts here relatively soon. College basketball right around the corner as well. Just a lot of stuff about to be going on, and it's great. The month of November is one of the best times of the year in terms of sports. We got college hoops, the NBA's back in full swing, the NFL's in full swing, college football's in full swing. Like it's just one of the best times of the year. But in the NBA, in case you missed it, the Pacers had a pretty quiet offseason. They brought everybody back, and rightfully so, right? Because, they made a run to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they did that without Benedict Mathurin, a guy who's going to play what I would think is a pretty decent-sized role this year. Okay, they did it with Halliburton being banged up for some of the games, missed, obviously the last two games against Boston and all that kind of stuff, right? So Pacers were pretty content to keep things the same, while there were other teams in the NBA who were not. So let's start with what people are going to tell you was the biggest move in the NBA this offseason, and that is Karl Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges going to the New York Knicks. Recency bias is a thing. New York bias is also a thing, especially in sports. And if you watch these national media guys, they're all going to tell you about how big of a deal this trade was for the New York Knicks. Oh my gosh. They got Karl Anthony Towns. He made a run to the Western Conference Finals last year with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And oh man. And I'm telling you right now, the only reason why they're making a big deal out of this trade, which to be fair, it is a big deal. Karl Anthony Towns, all-star, good player, all those things. The only reason why they're making a big deal out of this is because it happened late and because it's the Knicks. And let me say this before I continue on and give you my take. The Knicks got better by adding Karl Anthony Towns because they didn't have a center before, right? Isaiah Hartenstein leaves. He goes to Oklahoma City, which is great for them, right? So the Knicks adding Karl Anthony Towns is nice. It's good because they didn't have a center, but the truth is they're still not better than Boston. And I got to be honest, I don't know if New York is better than the Bucks or the Pacers. They don't have any depth. And I know that kind of worked well for them last year. Everyone was hurt. They're playing like 6.5 guys, and it wasn't great. But as of right now, they have 6 guys, maybe 7 players who can contribute in a playoff series. And that just isn't enough to win any playoff series. They just don't have enough options. Meanwhile, we look at the Indiana Pacers, and they've got 9 guys that can contribute in a playoff series, right? It allows you to mix and match. And because, look, the playoffs in the NBA, they're about stars and matchups. If you check both of those boxes, you're going to win a lot of games, right? That was the thing for Boston. No one could match up with the Boston Celtics last year, right? Too big, too much shooting, too much athleticism, right? And so, no one can match up with them. And when you look at the Knicks, they don't match up with Boston at all. So, yeah, the Knicks, did they get better? Sure. But are they better than the Pacers? I don't think they are. Are they better than the Bucks? I don't think they are. Are they better than Boston? Definitely not. The other big thing that happened in the Eastern Conference, Paul George, who I know we all love, PG-13, former, Indiana Pacer. Paul George is now playing for the 76ers, and the 76ers have an entirely new roster. Their biggest addition being Paul George, who's in the perfect role. He's the third star, which is what he needs to be. The 76ers' success is mainly going to be dependent upon Joel Embiid, a guy who's never gotten them to an Eastern Conference Finals. It's also going to be dependent on Tyrese Maxey, who is a really good basketball player. Paul George, third option, off the ball a lot, right? Go stand in the corner, Paul. If we pass it to you, shoot it. Like, that's going to be more of his role. He's not going to be asked to do as much, which is perfect for him because the Clippers asked him to do a lot, and they couldn't make it to the conference finals once with him with the Clippers. Okay, the 76ers, they're the most interesting team in the Eastern Conference because they've got a bunch of new players. At the end of last year, they only had three guys under contract, right? They brought some guys back, but it's a lot of new faces. Going to be like it's like watching a college basketball team filled with like 8 transfers. Like that's who the 76ers are this year. And I'm incredibly intrigued to see kind of how those guys mesh. The one thing that I do know about the 76ers is that Paul George and Joel Embiid are going to miss a lot of games because that's what Paul George and Joel Embiid do. Going to be interesting to see how that impacts things. Those are kind of the big moves in the Eastern Conference. The Bucks are pretty much the same. They added Gary Trent Jr., good player, but like not needle moving. That's really kind of it. Like the rest of the Eastern Conference is pretty similar. The West, some interesting things happen. Kings got DeMar DeRozan. That's interesting, but let's be honest, you don't want to listen to me talk about the Kings at all. Klay Thompson is in Dallas. Good move for Dallas, but they're not better than Oklahoma City because Oklahoma City had the best offseason of any team in the NBA. They bring in Isaiah Hartenstein, who we are all very familiar with after what he did with the Knicks. Alex Caruso is playing in Oklahoma City now. Another good on-ball defender who can shoot the crap out of the ball, okay? But I'm telling you, Oklahoma City had the best offseason. They might be the best team in the NBA. Very hard to say that after what the Celtics did last year, but Oklahoma City and Boston feel like hands down the 2 best teams in the NBA coming into the season, and it doesn't really feel close. But once again, that's why you play the games, and it should be interesting. I want to talk about Zach Edey, though, because, look, my wife is a Purdue grad. My father-in-law is a Purdue grad. My mother-in-law is a Purdue grad. 2 out of my 3 brother-in-laws are Purdue grads. I like Purdue. I don't mind Purdue. Okay? But I need you guys to stop talking about Zach Edey. Okay? You guys are starting to drive me crazy. Purdue fans, I know that Zach Edey scored 23 points against the Pacers the other night in a preseason game. But let me ask, who cares about preseason basketball? I love basketball as much as anybody. Like, I will put my love for basketball up with anyone. And if someone says, well, Jonathan, prove to us how much you love basketball, how about I used to spend my Friday nights watching the Pistons on League Pass? How's that for proof? Okay. I love basketball. And so, like, when I watch a crap ton of it. Okay. Zach Edey is not going to do during the real NBA season, the regular season. He's not going to do what he did the other night against the Pacers. Like, it's not going to happen. Here's important information, Purdue fans, that you need to know about what happened in that Pacers and Grizzlies preseason game the other night. Ja Morant didn't play. That's incredibly important. Okay, because during the regular season, Ja Morant's going to play 35 to 40 minutes a night. And I promise you, when he's on the floor, the Memphis Grizzlies are not going to say, okay, everybody, stop what you're doing, give Zach Edey the basketball, and let's watch him try to post up for the next 5 seconds. That is not going to happen. Okay? Now, maybe in those, 6 minutes where Zach Edey's on the floor and Ja Morant isn't, maybe they'll let him post up a couple times in those slots. But no, I'm telling you, Zach Edey's not going to impact, winning and losing based off of his post game like he did the other night against the Pacers. Okay, Zach Edey's going to play 20 to 30 minutes a night. That'd be kind of my guess. Okay, and most of those minutes are going to be spent setting screens, rolling to the rim, blocking shots, rebounding, all very valuable things. Okay, I'm not sitting here saying that Zach Edey isn't going to be a good NBA player. I think that he will be. Okay, I just think it's going to look very different than what it looked like when he was at Purdue. Purdue, he was a star, clear it out, throw him the ball on the block, and let him go score. Like, that's not what his role is going to be in the NBA, because the NBA and college basketball are two completely different sports. They are not the same. Okay? Zach Edey is going to be a guy who averages somewhere between 10 and 15 points a night with double-digit rebounds. That's it. And a lot of his points are going to come at the free throw line. They're going to come off of offensive rebounds, and they're going to come on lobs from John Morant. Okay? He's not backing dudes down and throwing up hook shots like he was at Purdue. That's not going to happen. Okay? It's not, right? He's going to set screens, rebound, and defend. Okay? Because that's what every guy in the NBA does that's not a superstar. Okay? So, Purdue fans, was Zach Edey really good the other night? Yes, he was. It was, interesting to watch. It's been a long time since I've watched an NBA team, preseason, regular season, or postseason, say, hey, let's clear it out and let that guy post up. Okay? It doesn't happen very often. So, from that perspective, it was interesting. But if you think that this is what Zach Edey is going to be for his entire career, then you simply haven't watched enough NBA basketball to know that that's not going to happen. Okay? And here's the other thing, because I know what's coming. Zach Edey's not better than Miles Turner. Okay? I know that there's some Purdue Pacer fan crossover. I know that Miles Turner doesn't have the highest approval rating, but I'm telling you right now, like, he's not. Okay. Miles Turner, the ability to shoot, that and that alone, that and the fact that he's led the league in blocks multiple times in his career, those two things allow him to clear Zach Edey. As of right now, could Zach Edey be better than Miles Turner here in the next couple of years? Sure. That's not out of the realm of possibilities. But as of right now, it's Miles Turner. No questions asked. Tom Brady is just incapable of, it was so weird. Like, during Tom Brady's career, I feel like we didn't really talk about him that much because, let's be honest, the Patriots were really boring, right? We didn't talk about him until he won a Super Bowl. That's not entirely true, but you get what I'm saying. Now I feel like we talk about Tom Brady more as a broadcaster than we talked about him as a quarterback. Tom Brady is now also a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, and that is problematic. I'll tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a fantastic week. Kevin Potts is set to join me here in about 20-ish minutes or so. We're going to talk NFL, Davante Adams trade, Amari Cooper trade. Those are kind of the biggest stories going on right now. I haven't seen anything about the Colts today, which hopefully means no one else is headed to IR and no one's going to miss the game that isn't already supposed to against the Dolphins. Hopefully this means there's no setback for Anthony Richardson because he needs to play. Pretty simple. But speaking of the NFL, Tom Brady. Tom Brady. He, was supposed to come in and, be this fantastic color commentator. And I don't think he's been great. I don't think he's been terrible. I think he's in the process of learning how to be good at broadcasting, because broadcasting is not like it's not an easy thing to do. Okay, I thought he did his best game on Sunday during that Cowboys and Lions game. Right, I feel like he's improving slowly but surely. Right, because being a color commentator's hard. Like you've got like 4 seconds. That's not right. You've got 30 seconds between plays. And in that 30 seconds, you have to explain everything important that just happened. And a lot happens in that, 4 to 6 seconds for all these plays. So he's getting there. Okay. But here's the thing. Like I said, being a color commentator is hard. And it just got significantly more difficult for Tom Brady, who was already not exactly wowing people with his abilities as a broadcaster. So yesterday, Tom Brady was approved as a minority owner for the Las Vegas Raiders. Congrats to him. He's going to make money doing that, all those things, Vegas, cool, all that kind of stuff, right? But here's the thing. Owners have rules that they have to abide by. And, Bleacher Report put out a tweet where they highlighted all of them, so thanks to them for this information. But in case you missed it, Tom Brady is not permitted to be in another team's facility. Okay? So he can't, show up and talk to coaches. He can't show up and talk to players. He can't do anything of that nature. Okay? And that is kind of an important thing for broadcasters because part of their job is learning things from coaches and players to use during the broadcast. Okay? And speaking of the broadcast, Tom Brady isn't allowed to go to any of the broadcast meetings for games, right? Because in those meetings, you're talking to players and coaches, and you're learning about the offense or the defense that they're running. You just learn things about the opposing team that you could then very easily pass on to your own team. So Tom Brady isn't allowed to be at any of these broadcast production meetings. He can't go in person. He can't do it over Zoom. He is not allowed to be at these things that are very, very important. Very, very important. Okay? So he can't watch practices since owners aren't permitted to watch other teams practice. He can't go to other teams' facilities. He can't go to these broadcast meetings. He can't do anything. He just has to show up and call the games with no help, no crutch, no extra little stories to kind of lean on. He just got to show up and call games, which is already hard enough when you have those broadcast meetings. Okay? Here's the biggest thing, though, right? All those other things, there's a world where you can kind of work around them and still do a good job. But Tom Brady, Tom Brady is not allowed to criticize officials. That seems problematic. Oh, Tom Brady also is not allowed to criticize other teams. That also seems problematic for a guy broadcasting a football game. Could you imagine? There were 20 something penalties called in that Monday Night Football game against the Bills and the Jets. Could you imagine Tom Brady having to sit through that and not being allowed to say anything negative about the officials him just having to sit there and be like, yeah, I don't know, but those guys are doing great. Yep, that was a roughing the passer call, even though it probably wasn't, and even though Aaron Rodgers said after the game that the roughing the passer penalties that were called were not very good, even the one that aided the Jets, where he apparently got roughed, even though he didn't. Yeah, good luck doing that, Tom Brady. Oh, also, Tom Brady isn't allowed to say anything bad about other teams. So, like what? So if he had done the Lions and the Cowboys game, wait, he did do the Lions and the Cowboys game on Sunday. Could you imagine him having to sit there and him not allowed to sit there and be like, this Cowboys team is awful. Like he's no longer allowed to do that. Okay, he already hasn't been great when it comes to broadcasting. And it's about to get so much worse with all of these new rules and restrictions that he now has to abide by because he's a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. Fox, just do the right thing. Okay, give us Greg Olsen back. Okay, put him back with, Burkhart and Aaron Andrews, and let's just let us watch them. It'll be good. It'll be great. That's what it'll be. Tom Brady, man. It's just this whole experiment by Fox has only made things worse. And it stinks because like commentators and broadcasters, like they have this, the good ones at least, they have this ability to enhance your viewing experience. Okay, like just thinking about, look, I got to be honest, my favorite guys to listen to when it comes to watching football is Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. Okay, I think they're awesome. Like they've clearly been working together for a long time. They clearly like working together. And even when games aren't close, even when games, are a little boring, like they just do a very good job, Joe Buck and Aikman do. And they aren't the only ones. There's, Tirico and Collinsworth do a good job. Like there's plenty of broadcasting crews out there that do a good job. But there's this opportunity to make viewing games a little more enjoyable. And I don't know how Tom Brady's going to do that when he isn't allowed to speak negatively about other teams and he's not allowed to talk negatively about the officials. Because look, like if you want a high approval rating as a broadcaster, like just complain about every call, right? You're going to make somebody happy. you are. Because, there's always a fan out there who complains about calls, and that drives me crazy. Oh my gosh. I can't. Jeez. Ugh. Anyway, sorry. People who complain about officials bother me, but that's a story for another time. Okay. Chances are your team didn't lose because of officiating, but like I said, we can talk about that later. Let's talk a little postseason baseball. The Yankees feel like they're significantly better than the Guardians. Okay, the thing about the Guardians is they've got this awesome bullpen. Okay, like that is supposed to be the strength of their team in terms of pitching. Here's the thing though. Bullpens are way more effective when you have a lead, and the Guardians haven't been able to grab a lead through the first two games. Okay, the Yankees, the starting pitching for them has been good, right? They gave all this money to Garrett Cole. He comes out last night and was just awesome. Okay, he pitched really, really well. And, I mean, look, like through two games, I think the Guardians have only scored 4 runs. That sounds correct. 5 runs, excuse me. Right? They scored 2 in game 1. They scored 3 last night. And it just feels like they can't really get anything going offensively, right? Meanwhile, the Yankees, like, they they're just very complete. There's really no other way to put it. Like, they have good starting pitching. The bullpen can be a little shaky, but the starting pitching is really good. They've got a lot, like everybody in their lineup can swing it, right? Like having to work through the gauntlet of Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, and then Giancarlo Stanton, who's on an absolute tear right now, isn't fun for anybody. Like that is a horrific part of the lineup to have to pitch to. Okay, so the Yankees feel like they are just in another weight class compared to the Guardians, and so yeah, like that's serious. Like it's not over. Yankees are up 2-0. They aren't going to sweep the Guardians. Sweeps in baseball are just really tough. Okay, like they just are. That's why you know that's why I like the Mets in Game 2, and they won, and they play again tonight at 8 o'clock, and I can't wait. Like this seems like the series that's actually going to be interesting. Okay, because like this Mets team is legitimately good, right? I know that they get shut out Game 1, they lose 9-0, but they bounce back in a big way in Game 2. They win 7-3. They've got legitimate stars on that team. Sean Manaea, who's just been awesome, just been shoving. It's been incredible to watch kind of his evolution as a pitcher. They have, Pete Alonso, the polar bear. He's starting to get things figured out. Francisco Lindor has been awesome this year just because he's one of the best shortstops in all of baseball. Like they have very talented players, the Mets do, all over the field. And when you look at just the star power of these four teams left, the Guardians just feel like they don't belong, right? Because like when you look at the Mets, Pete Alonso's a star, Francisco Lindor's a star. Okay, when I look at the Yankees, like there's obviously Judge and there's Stanton and there's Juan Soto, like big stars. Garrett Cole, he's a big star. And then you look at the Dodgers, and they have nothing but stars. It's Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts and Ohtani, and they've got nothing but stars. And then the Guardians are just kind of like, yeah, we're here. We're a good story. That's kind of what they feel like because no one was expecting for them to win the AL Central. No one was expecting for them to be as good, as they were during the regular season. No one expected for them to win 92 games like they did. But they're here, and part of me kind of feels bad for them because it looks like they're going to get swept, even though sweeps are very difficult to kind of achieve in baseball because baseball's weird. Guys get hot, guys go cold. Look, they're down 2-0. They lost 2 games on the road. They bounce back. They win games 3 and 4. Then you got best two out of 3, and who knows what's going to happen from there. When it comes to the NFL, we've got 11 weeks left. More football tomorrow night. Hallelujah. Give me all the football, right? Should be just another great week. The what's it called? The college football slate on Saturday is going to be good. Got to be honest, I'm going to watch the Thursday night game because that's just what I do. But I'm not excited about it. It's the Broncos and the Saints. It'll be fun to watch Bo Nix and Spencer Rattler, a couple rookies, go at it. But outside of that, who really cares? Joining me here in about 5 minutes, Kevin Potts. We're going to talk about big trades in the NFL because 3 happened yesterday. Obviously, Davante Adams and Amari Cooper stealing the headlines when it comes to that. Cam Akers got traded too. He got traded to the Vikings by the Texans. So interesting things happening across the NFL. We're 6 weeks into the season. It feels like we know who's good. It feels like we know who's bad. So a lot of stuff to talk about with Kevin Potts when we come back here in about 5 minutes.
Breaking news coming in from Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win, breakaway, pick six, three-point shot, underdog win, buzzer beater, shootout, walk-off, and absolutely every play in between is amazing. From football to basketball and hockey to baseball, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Indiana.
Think you're dealing with drug poisoning, chemical poisoning, food poisoning? Call the Poison Helpline first for fast, free advice from medical professionals. Call 1-800-222-1222 anytime, anywhere. Save the number, save a life. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a fantastic week. I know I am. And my week just got better because the one and only Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack, is joining the show right now. Kevin, what's going on, man?
I'm good. We're getting deep into the NFL season here. We're starting to settle some teams into different tiers, really figure out who they are. Been a lot of fun to watch.
Who's in your top tier?
Well, you have to pick the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I think the Lions and the Ravens have both looked fantastic. Obviously, we've talked about this before. I'm a 49ers fan. I'm still putting them up there. I think they're rounding the form a little bit. That's probably the Vikings, of course. I forget them because they weren't supposed to be up there, but what they've done this year has been truly fantastic. That entire NFC North is really in that first or second tier, which has been a surprise after the most recent decade we've seen some football from them.
Yeah, how concerned are you about Aiden Hutchinson going out for the rest of the year for the Lions? Because I loved him, but that happened, and I was like, that's like their whole pass rush. How concerning is that?
Yeah, it's very concerning. I think that's more of a playoff Super Bowl issue, which obviously, if you're in a contender tier, that is the goal. I think they'll be fine in the regular season. They still have so much talent on offense, and they have enough young players. I think they'll be fine on the defensive side of the ball. But I think they're one of those teams that's going to have to explore some sort of trade for a pass rusher because you're right. I just don't think they have the juice to beat some of these top teams with Hutch out.
Okay, you think the Raiders would move Max Crosby?
No.
Okay, I don't think so either. It's really funny because no team wants to move a good edge rusher, no matter how bad they are. And I'm seeing people throw out names like Myles Garrett and Max Crosby, and I'm like, that's not going to happen. And I hear other people be like, well, what about Hassan Reddick? And there's a clause in Hassan Reddick's trade when he came over from the Eagles that the Jets couldn't trade him to an NFC team. So that's not an option. I don't know what they're going to do, but that's definitely something worth paying attention to. If there was an edge rusher to get moved to Detroit, who do you think it would be?
It'd probably be a smaller one. My guess may be a guy like Josh Uche from the Patriots. They've explored moving him in recent years. He is not exactly fit into their plans as a pure pass rusher, but he's a very good pass rusher, bad against run. I think that's more of a day 3, maybe late day 2 type of pick, going for a guy like him. Azeez Ojulari, the Giants had a really nice game on Sunday night last week. Maybe they explore trading him in what looks like a lost season for them. So they were looking more like those type of moves than a true, you're giving up a first plus for a superstar edge rusher at this point.
Okay, fair enough. Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack. The reason why I asked him to come on was to talk about the trades that happened yesterday. So let's start with the Jets. This wasn't surprising. I think we all were just kind of waiting on this news to come through that Davante Adams got moved to New York. What were kind of your thoughts when the trade officially happened?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it wasn't surprising. We've known for about a year that the two buddies want to play together. And with the Jets season, particularly on offense, spiraling, it seemed like an easy answer to fix things. In a vacuum, I like the trade. They obviously needed a second wide receiver. The connection between Adams and Rodgers is very real. He will help lift the floor of this team. And paying a third for him isn't that bad of a price. I just don't know if this really changes anything for me. I still thought this was like a low-end wild card team. Maybe now you make it to the divisional round, you have a little more juice on offense. But I still don't know how good this team is. They still make a lot of mistakes, both sides of the ball, in terms of penalties and mental mistakes. I have a ton of concerns about the performance and nature of this offensive line. I just didn't think they were Davante Adams away from being an actual contender. So while I do think it's a good trade and it does help them, I get why they did it. I don't know if this moves the needle in the grand scheme of the AFC for me.
Yeah, I saw it happen, and I was like, great. They still can't protect Aaron Rodgers. I think their biggest issue. He's constantly under fire. The Jets have given up more sacks than they're ninth in the NFL in sacks allowed. They're just, Aaron Rodgers is getting hit all the time. I don't feel like their pass rush is great. I know that Will McDonald's having a good year, but outside of that, that's really it. I felt like if they really wanted to make a big leap, they would have added some sort of pass rusher or someone to kind of help keep Aaron Rodgers off of his butt. That's kind of how I felt about it. How did do you kind of feel the same way?
Yeah, I think they have a lot of good players. I just don't see a lot of great. And like you said, he's getting sacked a bunch. The pass rush has been up and down. Maybe it's partly because we've all just known Adams is going to be there, that we undervalue his addition, and maybe it goes well. But I just think there's too many holes on this roster when you stack it up to a Baltimore or a Kansas City to actually go beat them. And I think when you make a trade like that, that is the idea that they're going for. I just think they're tier 2, tier 3 of the AFC, just because, like you said, they have too many holes at other positions that they also didn't fix. And fixing them at the trade deadline doesn't work usually. It's hard to add that many players. They just need to do better in the offseason. And unfortunately, they swung and missed at too many spots.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. When the move happened, it kind of feels panicky of oh crap, we're 2-4. Is there anything that we can do to be a little bit better? And the answer was go get Davante Adams. Did the move feel panicky to you at all?
Yeah, it felt like a desperation move, which is really weird to say for adding a guy like Davante Adams because he is still very good. He's still a top 10 wide receiver. He makes your team better because he's very good. But just with the attitude around this team, the record at 2-4, it did feel very panicky. Let's get Aaron's friend in here. Maybe he can fix things when there's more problems than just your wide receiver 2 spot at this point in time.
Yeah, unless Davante Adams is going to play like edge rusher, which I'm assuming he'd be good at because he's really athletic. I don't think they're gonna. I'm with you. I don't think it really moves the needle that much. Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack. The other wide receiver trade that happened makes sense. I feel like the Bills got significantly better. What were kind of your thoughts when the Bills traded for Amari Cooper?
This is the one I really loved. I tweeted, this is a wide receiver move that actually makes a difference, because you look at the team he got added to, it fits so much with what they needed. There's a very transition year for the Bills, obviously, with Diggs moving on. They had a bunch of stopgap veterans and some nice young pieces. But we really saw on Monday night, they're missing that true X wide receiver who can separate against man, like throwing third and goal shots to Matt Collins in the slot. That's not sustainable for an AFC contender. Cooper, he's kind of been in the background because of where he's been playing, but he's still a very good receiver, especially separating against man coverage. He drops in perfectly to what this Bills team needs on offense. And I love that they looked at this team like, hey, we can go add one more player, even in the year that's supposed to be a gap year, and possibly push in the AFC. And it was very difficult for them to get a trade done because they're cap strapped. They had zero money. And Cooper is one of the only players who cost basically nothing because of his summer restructuring. So the financials and the player all wrapped in one, getting this trade done for just a third and how well it fits his team, I loved it.
Yeah, I did too. As soon as it happened, I'm with you. Like, this feels like something that makes a difference. And there's a part of me too that is just really excited to see Amari Cooper, right? Because he comes into the league. He's playing for the Cowboys, who were good, but they were always a mess, and they'll always be a mess as long as Jerry Jones is there. If you don't believe me, go listen to his interview from yesterday. And then he winds up in Cleveland, where he's playing with Deshaun Watson, who wasn't very good or who isn't very good. And now, like, he's finally in a winning situation. And I'm just excited to see him in this spot because, like you said, like, the Bills needed another receiver. They needed a true X, a true number one who you can go to on third down and in the red zone. Like, when I asked you at the top, you were mentioning how we kind of put teams, we're at a point where we can start putting teams in these different tiers. I feel like this puts the Bills with the Chiefs and the Ravens. If Amari Cooper is who we all think that he is, which I'm assuming he will be that guy, where do you kind of put the Bills compared to some of the better teams in the AFC?
Yeah, I think it'd be fair to put him in the back half of tier one. I still might have him in the top of tier two, kind of as a wait and see approach, see how he gets folded in this offense. This defense has still been really, really banged up. Von Miller's suspended right now. They have a lot of pieces just kind of moving on both sides of the ball. I think right now they're still probably top of tier two, but if you told me in 4 weeks when they get everyone back, Cooper settled, they're firmly in tier one, it would not shock me in the slightest.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Because like you said, they're really banged up on defense, but it feels like once they get healthy, like, they'll be fine on that side of the ball. And most importantly, they have Josh Allen. Like, that really helps,
Oh, absolutely.
So we'll see. I'm very intrigued to kind of see what they wind up looking like going forward. What are your thoughts on what's happening in Pittsburgh, where Justin Fields starts 4-2, albeit I don't think he's been like great. I think he's been fine. But, when you're 4-2, it's hard to be like, we're going to go with the other guy, especially when the other guy is Russell Wilson, who wasn't very good last year. What are your thoughts on the Steelers giving Russell Wilson reps with the ones this week?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. Like you said, they're 4-2, but Fields hasn't been great. This offense clearly has caps on it when he is at quarterback. Some of that's his fault. Some of that's just because they have one wide receiver and 3 offensive linemen on IR right now. But trying to move on from Fields isn't the worst in the world because there is more this offense could do. But the problem is it's Russell Wilson. And we saw in Denver last year, he just isn't the rest that we know. He doesn't have that in his game anymore. So I don't think it's going to get better putting him in. And a lot of the issues this team has, the run game and the offensive line are actually buoyed a little bit by what Fields can do with his legs. And Russ does not have that anymore. So like maybe you're a little bit better as a passer, maybe, but you're going to get worse in terms of negating sacks and rushing outside the pocket and just the overall health of your run game because of the threat that Fields' legs bring. So I get trying to do something other than Fields. He has been great. Russ being the answer makes me dislike the move.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Like I don't mind switching it up from Justin Fields, but to switch it up from Justin Fields to go to Russell Wilson, especially when, like you said, the Steelers have 3 offensive linemen on IR. Like I kind of like the mobility of Justin Fields with that being part of the equation. I don't get it. This honestly kind of feels like Mike Tomlin said in the offseason that Russell Wilson was going to be the starter, and he doesn't want to be wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love Tomlin. I think he's a great coach, but this does feel a little bit of an old school coaching type of thing. This is the guy who's going to be our starter. He's the veteran. And now that he's healthy, he did not lose his job because of injury, even though I think most people would say Fields is probably the better answer right now and long term in terms of which guy you'd probably re-sign this offseason.
Yeah, that's very much how I feel about it. Tomorrow night, once again, joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. You can follow him on Twitter at Kevin Potts06. He's got a YouTube channel as well that you can go check out. Tomorrow night, let's just be honest. It's not a great game. It's Denver playing against New Orleans. This is for football sickos who want to watch young rookie quarterbacks make a lot of mistakes. Because I feel like that's what we're going to see. Denver's defense has been really good this year. New Orleans, not as much, but Bo Nix hasn't been super impressive, right? Like he's had some good games here and there, but I don't think he's been great. I think people know what they're getting with Bo Nix, though, through these first 6 weeks. What are we getting from Spencer Rattler, rookie out of South Carolina, who was, who's very talented, but was, I think, a 5th round selection this year? What are kind of your thoughts on him?
He's going to be very exciting. He has some legit NFL starter tools, specifically his arm talent. He can really push the ball into tight windows and down the field. We saw it a little bit in his first start against the Bucs. It's some really nice throws on the move, push some really nice seam balls that I don't think I've ever seen Derek Carr throw. And the deep ball is more of his game than it is with Carr. So you're going to get more of these big time throws. But 5th round rookie, he's going to make mistakes. He is a smaller player who overestimates his athleticism. So he'll take some really bad sacks. He'll also just overcreate too much, throw some balls that he shouldn't. But he is a very formally highly recruit. He has all the tools. So you're going to see some of these big time throws off platform, and it's going to be really fun to watch, but there's just going to be a lot of negative plays because he's a young player, which is fine. It's about what you'd expect.
Fair enough. Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. He does a ton of draft stuff, which is why I'm asking him about these young quarterbacks. And it would be a mistake on my part if I didn't ask you about your thoughts on Drake May in his first start against Houston, because he was the number 1 quarterback on your board coming out this last year. What'd you think of him in his debut?
I thought he looked good. I mean, it was far from perfect. He definitely had some accuracy issues, but that was always part of his scouting report. But I think you really saw what adding a young quarterback who's willing to push the ball vertically and create with his leg opens up this offense, because the best this Patriots offense has looked all year. I thought his ability, we saw it on the touchdown to Keyshawn Boutte at the end of the half, to throw downfield actually gives guys space to work. He moved the chains with his legs 3 different times, which is also awesome to see. He's kind of an underrated athlete. I don't think people realize with how big he is. He can really move, and that is a big addition to the offense. But he's also a young quarterback. He took some bad sacks, some really bad hits. Some were his fault, some were his offensive lines. He just missed some throws you'd expect him to see. But if you compared it to how Caleb Williams looked in his second start against the same defense, I thought it was about the same, maybe a little bit better. So I thought it was an encouraging first start.
There you go. That's good. Two more questions for you, and I will let you go. Sorry about that. You're a 49ers fan. We have a Super Bowl rematch on Sunday. 49ers are favored by 1.5, which I kind of found kind of surprising. Were you surprised by that? And what do you kind of expect from that game?
I'm not surprised that they're favored, just because I think Vegas thinks they're a good team and they're at home, but I wouldn't bet that personally. I don't think it's a great matchup for them in terms of what Kansas City's good at. This is a team that's run the ball really, really well. They're very good at getting that 4 or 5 yards each time, staying on schedule. Those are the run offense the Niners defense has really struggled with. Also, they're very good at attacking over the middle with Juju and Kelsey. And the non-Fred Warner linebackers for the 49ers have really struggled in coverage. So I think it's a tough matchup for the defense. I think their offense will move the ball against a good Chiefs defense. But like all year, it's going to come down to if they can score in the red zone. For both teams who have really struggled this year at punching the ball in the end zone, it's probably going to come down to which team scores touchdowns in this game. And I just have a little bit more confidence in the Chiefs at this point in time.
Which makes sense. Like it's Mahomes. Like how do you not have confidence in Mahomes and Andy Reid coming off of a bye week to figure out how to score touchdowns? Last thing for you. I don't think I've ever asked you this. Are you do you gamble? Do you kind of mess around with that kind of stuff or no?
Not really, but a bunch of my friends do. So I always give advice and stuff like that, and usually do draft odds around that time of year.
Okay. So the Colts, I feel like, have been disrespected by the sports books in Vegas. The Miami Dolphins, and I'm saying this as a Miami Dolphins fan, they might legitimately be the worst team in the NFL without Tua. They're awful. The Colts are only favored by 3. It opened at 3.5. Does that feel low to you? The Colts are at home too, if in case that matters to you.
Yeah, it does, because I mean that's basically projecting it as a pick 'em for it. It does feel low. I mean, nothing about the Dolphins post Tua has indicated that they are going to be an inning game. They got blown out by the Titans in a game where the Titans tried to throw the ball away as many times as possible. I don't know if it's because it's probably because of the injuries for the Colts and how up in the air it's been the past couple of weeks that they're just keeping the line a little bit tighter. But that does seem very close. Even with all the Colts issues, I still think they're significantly better than what this Dolphins team's putting out right now.
Okay, I lied. This is going to be my last question, because if you come on a sports radio show in Indianapolis, you have to give your opinion on this. Should the Colts roll with Joe Flacco, or should they continue to let Anthony Richardson be the starter?
No, you got to play Richardson. He has not played enough games. You need to know what you have in this quarterback to make financial decisions down the road. Also, he needs reps to get better. Adding Joe Flacco as your starting quarterback, unless you really think you're going far in the playoffs and you need him to start and that's your best case, just doesn't make any sense. And I don't think this Colts team is at that point where that's a decision that makes sense.
Yeah, and let's be honest. If you think that you're going to go really far in the playoffs and then you're like, Joe Flacco's my quarterback, the answer is you're probably not going to go very far in the playoffs, especially in the AFC where you got to deal with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Mahomes and all these guys. But
yeah, I mean, let them get some chemistry with these younger pass catchers, give them reps, and we'll see where you go from there in the next year or so, and if he's actually the future.
Yeah, we'll see. I hopefully he's good. He's good to go this week, because like you said, they need to see the reps. 28 games until he is eligible for that extension, and you want all the data you can have before you make that decision, because that's a lot of money that you could potentially pay him. Kevin, thanks for your time, man, as always.
Yeah, of course. It's always a pleasure.
You got it. All right, man. I'll see you. That is the great Kevin Potts. You can follow him on Twitter at KevinPotts06. Check out his Substack, Kevin Potts, NFL and NFL Draft breakdowns. When we come back here in a few minutes, we've got thoughts on the Jets and the Bills. Major difference in those two trades that were made. I'm going to give you those thoughts when we come back here in about 3 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's live on Twitter, watching the stream there, maybe you're watching the stream on YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app. Either way, great show today. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. I'm about to talk about, NFL, football, trades, all those things here in a second, but during the break, I just kind of scroll through Twitter, just do something mindless, give my mind like half a second to just relax. And I feel bad for Warriors fans because they're freaking out about Buddy Hield. They're like, oh, Buddy Hield, perfect compliment to Steph Curry, right? The new splash bro, all those things. And look, if there's any Warrior fans out there, yeah, you're going to be disappointed because that dude can't guard me. Okay. So he won't be on the floor late at the end of games, just so you know. Anyway, from time to time, I still have to go back and remind people of how awful Buddy Hield is on the defensive end of the basketball court. Okay, anyway, Davante Adams traded to the Jets yesterday. Amari Cooper traded to the Bills yesterday. I played baseball for a long time. Okay, since I finished up college, I've started playing golf, right? That's just kind of the natural progression of every baseball player. You play baseball, and then you play golf. And that's just the way that it goes. And look, I didn't play golf nearly as much this summer as I did last, but I still enjoy going out to the golf course, getting super upset, right? It's nice to be outside sometimes. And there's this correlation between golf and baseball that I really like, and it's what I think kept me coming back to baseball and what keeps me coming back to golf, is there's just this constant pursuit of having a perfect swing, which is just not attainable in either sport. Like, you're never going to have a perfect golf swing, and you're never going to have a perfect baseball swing. It's just not going to matter. There's always going to be something that you can do to have just to be a little bit better. Okay. Either way, though, there is this constant pursuit of that perfect swing. Okay. And for me, like when I was playing baseball, and it's the same thing with my golf swing now. Like, I'm just always making tweaks, keep the shoulder in, slot the barrel better. That's a baseball reference. Keep the hands back. That's a golf thing. Make sure the club face is pointing the way that I want it, and like all that stuff. Okay. And something that I've noticed, something that I noticed when I was in, playing baseball, and something that I've noticed with my golf swing now is that whenever, if I'm playing, a round of 18, I'm playing 18 holes. I have this habit of messing with my golf swing during the round. And what happens is when I mess with my golf swing during the round, I get worse. Things go from bad to awful to horrendous to my driver ends up in a lake because I chucked it so far. Okay, like that's what kind of tends to happen whenever I'm playing golf. But however, if I show up at the driving range and I make tweaks to my swing, things just go better. I actually make progress. I actually feel like things are moving in the right direction. And I sit back and I ask the question, like, why is that? Why is it that my golf swing gets better when I'm at the driving range, when I make tweaks, versus how my golf swing gets worse when I make tweaks during an actual round? And the answer to that is, when I make tweaks at the driving range, there is a clear plan. Okay, I sit back and I think about, the last 100 golf balls that I've hit. And I'm like, okay, like the slice is bad. What if I do this with my hands? What if I change this in my stance? Right? Like, you're just able to think through things based off of a larger set of data. Meanwhile, if I'm on the course and I'm playing 18 holes and I'm changing my swing, it's not based off of my last 100 swings. It's based off of the last 4 swings that I made where I put it in the trees and then hit it in the pond. Right? It's a reactionary fix opposed to where I'm at when I'm at the range. There's clearly a plan as to what I'm trying to fix. There were two big trades yesterday in the NFL, and they look similar on paper. The Jets traded a third-round pick that could turn into a second-round pick, but it probably won't. They sent that to the Raiders for Aaron Rodgers' buddy, Davante Adams. And the Bills traded a third-round pick for Amari Cooper. On the surface, these two trades look the same. Two AFC East teams looking to improve their offenses by going out and acquiring star receivers. But here's the truth. Those two trades aren't similar in the slightest. The Jets made a reactionary trade. They're 2-4. They just fired their head coach, and it feels like the wheels are about to pop off. So they're like, oh, we have to do something. Let's go get Davante Adams. That'll fix everything, even though it won't. The Bills, on the other hand, made a trade during a range session. Okay, they looked at their 6 games that they've played this year. They realized what their weakness on offense was. Then they went out and were like, you know what? Amari Cooper solves a lot of issues for us. And because of that, it feels like they got better. While for the Jets, it feels like they made a reactionary trade to make Aaron Rodgers happy. If you watch the Bills' first 6 games of the year this year, even though they started 4-2, it was clear that they needed to add an elite wide receiver or just a legitimate number 1 wide receiver, because I like Shakir, little small dude in the slot, really good. If he's your best receiver, though, that's an issue. If rookie Keon Coleman, who I like, if he's your best receiver, then you have an issue. And the Bills realized that, so they went out and they got Amari Cooper. Okay? They went back, the Bills saw their issues, and then they went out and they made a trade that fixed them. The Jets clearly didn't do that. If the Jets had done the same thing, if they'd gone back and they'd looked and analyzed, and they'd asked a very simple question of, why are we 2-4? Okay, and what trade can we make to be better? If they had asked those 2 questions, they would not have landed on the solution of trading for Davante Adams. Okay, if they'd fully thought through everything, opposed to just making a move on the fly, pun intended, the Jets would have realized that they've given up the 9th most sacks in the NFL this year. And they probably would have been like maybe we should go get another offensive tackle. The Jets also would have noticed that they need another pass rusher. Will McDonald IV has 7 sacks on the year, and no one else on the Jets has more than 2.5. It would have been more beneficial for the Jets to trade for an offensive tackle or for another pass rusher than for them to go out and trade for Davante Adams. Okay, the Jets already have Garrett Wilson, one of the better receivers in the NFL. They already have Breece Hall, one of the better running backs in the NFL. That should be enough with Aaron Rodgers to score points and to be better, right? But instead of doing that, instead of stepping back and realizing what's needed, the Jets reacted quickly and fell in line with what Aaron Rodgers wanted them to do. Aaron Rodgers has stepped in and made that franchise more of a mess than it already was. The Jets are constantly reacting to what he wants. There is no plan. Okay? Actually, no, there is a plan. The Jets' plan is to make Aaron Rodgers happy, and that is not a good way to win football games. Take the Bills, on the other hand, though. They're the total opposite. There's no drama. They're trying to win a Super Bowl. That is clear. They've had some struggles defensively, right? But they know it's because they're incredibly banged up on that side of the football. So their plan is, we think our defense is good enough when healthy. We're going to wait for those guys to come back, right? They knew they needed another receiver, so they made the move. The plan is clear. Get Josh Allen a little bit of receiver help, and when the banged up defensive players come back, they'll be good enough defensively to compete with the Ravens and the Chiefs in the AFC during the playoffs. That is clearly their plan. And that's a way better plan than what the Jets have of make Aaron Rodgers happy. And that's why the Bills are going to compete for a Super Bowl this year, and the Jets are going to miss the playoff for the umpteenth year in a row. Operating with a plan in mind is way more beneficial, and you're going to improve than just reacting to everything that happens to you. It's true in life, and that's true in sports, and we're about to see it play out with the Bills and the Jets. These trades happening made me think about the Colts. What trades could they make to get better? Where do they need help? all those questions. So I, thought about the Colts' first 6 games, right? Had clips running through my mind. And through that, I came up with some potential Colts trade targets that actually make sense. I'm going to share those with you when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Tickets, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a nice week. We're at the halfway point. Friday is coming, and I can't wait. So is the NFL trade deadline. We are not that far away from it. I think it's November 5th. So only a few more weeks left in the action before we get to it. And, the NFL, they pushed it back this year. trying to encourage more teams to make trades. Because let's be honest, the NBA trade deadline is always fun because it's so late in the year. Playoff contenders make moves to hopefully go on a playoff run, and the NFL wants that effect. And so I was thinking last night, like, what if the Colts made a trade? Seriously, like, what if Chris Ballard had a plan that involved him making a trade? It's highly unlikely because it's Chris Ballard. But what position would he be targeting? And it was really nice because it allowed him to sit back, look at the roster, really kind of evaluate everything that's happened this year. And offensively, Chris Ballard has done a good job. Okay, Michael Pittman Jr., tough receiver. He's made plays. Like the Colts don't need any help at receiver. Okay, Josh Downs is reliable. Alec Pierce has made explosive plays. I know people are writing Edey Mitchell off, but give him time. Okay, playing receiver in the NFL is really hard. Okay, like what Malik Neighbors is doing in New York is not normal. Marvin Harrison Jr. hasn't even been that great in Arizona, and he was supposed to be, the best receiver prospect ever. Okay, so like it takes time for these guys to figure it out. Give Edey Mitchell some time, and hopefully he will. The offensive line, Chris Ballard, once again, did a good job here, right? Even with Ryan Kelly, being in and out of the lineup, even with Will Fries getting hurt, the offensive line's held up. The depth's there, the top end talent's there. With Quentin Nelson and the tackles, and Bernard Raymond and Braden Smith have both done a fantastic job. When it comes to running backs, Jonathan Taylor, must I say more? Right? He was just playing like arguably the best running back in the NFL until he got hurt. Hopefully, when he comes back, he can continue to play well. But even the backups have been fine. Like Trey Sermon, Tyler Goodson, like they've been good enough. They've been serviceable. Okay, they'd have more success if they were playing with Anthony Richardson. I think we'll see that this Sunday if Jonathan Taylor isn't back from injuries and if Anthony Richardson doesn't see another setback. When it comes to the quarterback position, obviously Ballard's not going to make a trade. I don't think that I have to go too in depth on that one. This leads us to the defensive side of the football. The Colts have dealt with most of their injuries on defense. So because of that, especially the defensive line, it seems like that's where all the injuries have come. Because of that, Chris Ballard, he's not touching that D-line. Once they get healthy, they'll be a lot better. Early in the year, before all the injuries happened, the Colts defensive line was actually pretty good. They did a good job generating pressure. Okay, but let's just be honest. When your two starting edge rushers are a rookie in Leatu Latu and Isaiah Land, then you're not going to do a great job of getting after the quarterback. And I know that the Colts haven't had a sack in these last two games against Jacksonville. That's undoubtedly concerning. But the thing playing against the Titans, they got the ball out fast, okay, and they still managed to generate a couple quarterback knockdowns. So I think they'll be fine there once they get healthy. No need to do anything at linebacker. Do I love Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed? Most definitely not. But solid options. Those are solid, good NFL linebackers. If Chris Ballard was to make a trade that made sense at least, it would undoubtedly be for a player in the secondary. More specifically, a cornerback, although if he wanted to upgrade at safety, I wouldn't be upset at that either. With that being said, Nick Cross is much improved. Julian Blackmon hasn't been great. He's been fine. Okay. He could be better. He could also be a lot worse. Okay. I would like for him to be the guy that the Colts talked about during training camp where he was just all over the place, making all these crazy plays, but that doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So the clear answer for Chris Ballard, if he wanted to make a move to help this Colts team make the playoffs and to help his job security and all those things, would be to, go trade for a corner. I like Jalen Jones. He competes. I like that he's long. I like that he's not afraid. Okay, but let's just be honest. Like he's not great. I like Sam Womack. Okay, he's been a nice find for the Colts on the waiver wire. He was on the waiver wire for a reason though. Like I know he's been good these, past few games that he's played in, but I just don't trust either one of them. Like when teams drop back to pass and I see a quarterback load up to make a throw, like my assumption is this ball's going to be caught. And and when I watch other teams, for example, The Broncos, they have a great pair of corners there. I don't feel that way. Like when I watch the Broncos play, it's like, yeah, like this dude's loading up to chuck it 40 yards downfield, but Patrick Surtain is probably going to knock it down, right? Like that's kind of the reaction that I have when I watch teams with good secondaries play, and that's not how I feel about the Colts. So if Ballard was to make a trade, it would be best for the Colts if it was for a cornerback. So I took the liberty of throwing some names together that Chris Ballard could trade for if he wanted to make the roster better and if he wanted to help the Colts' chances of making the playoffs. Jonathan Jones, first guy on the list of the three on here. This is the guy that I want. Jonathan Jones is a 31-year-old corner that plays for the Patriots. He will be available. He probably already is. The Patriots are bad, and the Patriots are in the middle of a long rebuild. So it makes sense that he'd be available given his age, because by the time the Patriots are good again, Jonathan Jones will likely be out of the league, even though guys with the name Jonathan tend to be extraordinarily great athletes. Okay? So if he came here to Indianapolis, he would show up. His experience being 31, I think, would be incredibly useful because this Colts secondary is incredibly young. But he would also be, more importantly, the best corner on this roster. And given his age, he doesn't cost much. He probably would go for like a 5th-round pick. Okay? Like, that to me is worth it. If the Colts look like a team here in the next couple weeks, that could make the playoffs. Okay? It would undoubtedly be worth a 5th-round pick to make the playoffs, right? Or to bolster your chances at making the playoffs. So, Chris Ballard, write that one down and put it on a sticky note and put it up where you can look at it every day. Trade for Jonathan Jones. Anyway, the other guy, or another guy, I've got three that I wouldn't mind seeing the Colts trade for. Budda Baker, starting safety for Arizona. He asked out of Arizona before the year started. He's not a corner, but he's simply just one of the best safeties in the NFL. He'd be an instant upgrade. And more importantly, like, he'd be a playmaker that this Colts defense really needs on the back end. Okay, like when I think about just the best defenses, like they all tend to have someone on the back end who's just capable of coming up with an interception when they need it. Okay, in Kansas City right now, like that'd be Trent McDuffie. Yeah, that's the first one that came to mind. But like that's what you need. Like you need guys that can make big plays on the back end, and Budda Baker's undoubtedly a guy who could do that. The issue with him is he's looking for a new contract, and he's not cheap. He's young, he's very talented, and he's incredibly good at football. So that's kind of the holdup with him. And as we know, Chris Ballard has to keep that cap space open for who knows what. And then the last guy, Tre'Davious White from the Rams, he could also come available if the Rams don't get rolling here. Another corner. It's a little older, but his experience will go a long way in helping the young Colts secondary. And he, like Jonathan Jones, would immediately be the best cornerback on this Colts roster. Undoubtedly, there is no question about it. Okay, moving on, talking about the NBA. Purdue fans, love you guys. I love Purdue fans. Okay, you guys are great. I appreciate the passion. All those things. I do, truly. But I need you to calm down about Zach Edey. Okay? I can't deal with this for much longer. Okay? He was great in college. It's a great college basketball player. One of the best college basketball players we've ever seen. The most dominant college basketball player we've seen since Shaquille O'Neal. Okay? And I know that Zach Edey scored 23 points against the Pacers the other night in a preseason game. Once again, in a preseason game. Who cares about the preseason? Not me. Also, very important information for you. John Morant did not play. That is important because John Morant's going to play 40 minutes a night on average. And when he's on the floor, Zach Edey simply isn't going to get post touches. It's not going to happen. When John Morant comes in the game, he's going to have the basketball and he's going to facilitate everything. Zach Edey's not getting post touches so that John Morant can stand out at the 3-point line and watch. That is not happening. It's not happening. Okay, now look, Zach Edey will get some post touches here and there, but it won't be that many. It won't be. Zach Edey is going to set screens. He's going to roll to the rim. He's going to rebound, and he's going to block shots. Those are the 4 things that he's going to do. And outside of that, he's not going to do very much. Like, that is going to be his role in the NBA. Zach Edey, be big. Zach Edey, block shots. Zach Edey, set screens. Zach Edey, dunk the basketball. Okay? Like that's who he's going to be. This whole, hey, we're going to give him the ball and let him post up and let him throw up hook shots. Like, in the 80s, sure, but not anymore. That's not what the NBA is now. Okay? And because the NBA and college basketball are completely different, like, they are not the same sport, Zach Edey's role is going to change. He's going to average somewhere between 10 and 15 points a night. He will average double-digit rebounds. That's it. Okay? He'll probably play somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes a game. All right? That's it. Okay? So, Purdue fans, I need you to quit being annoying about Zach Edey playing well in, once again, the preseason. His role during the regular season will be drastically different when he's sharing the floor with Desmond Bane and John Morant and all these other guys who can, really score the basketball. Okay, when you're out there with some 5'8" guy from Asia who can only pass, like, of course you're gonna get touches, because that's who he was on the floor with the other night here in Indianapolis. Okay, I like Zach Edey. I'm not saying he's gonna be a bust. I'm not saying that he's gonna be no good. I'm not saying that he's no good right now. I'm just saying that if you're expecting from him what you saw in the preseason game against the Pacers the other night, you were going to be disappointed. Okay? They're not clearing out one side of the floor for Zach Edey to throw up hook shots. He'll be a good, solid NBA player, but he's not going to be a star. He's never going to sign one of these big max contracts for, $300 million or whatever it is. Okay? Like that's not who Zach Edey's going to be. He's going to set screens. He's going to rebound. He's going to dunk the ball. He's going to block shots. That is going to be his life in the NBA. Will he get post touches from time to time? Sure. But that's only happening when John Morant isn't on the floor. Okay? Because the NBA isn't about big dudes. It's about shooting. It's about spacing. And it's about playing with pace. Okay? Those are the 3 things that the NBA is about: shooting, spacing, playing with pace. And love Zach Edey. Once again, I think he's going to be a good player. He's a guy who's probably going to average a double-double. That's good. But this dude's not a star. Okay? He's a role player. That is who Zach Edey is. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, you can be a role player in the NBA for a long time, and you can make a lot of money doing it. But, yeah, if you think Zach Edey's going to put up 23 points a night in the league, throwing up hook shots, that's not going to happen. Okay? He's going to be fun to watch. Trust me. I've got, League Pass rankings in my head. I won't share them with you because you don't want to hear me talk about who I'm going to watch on League Pass on Tuesday nights for the next several months. But the Grizzlies, like they have to be up there because Zach Edey is a very intriguing prospect, right? Because he's huge and he is athletic and he does have good feet and he clearly can play in the NBA. I'm just saying it's going to look very different than what it looked like when he was in college. So it's also going to look very different than what it looked like the other night where he scored 23 points against the Pacers. Like I said, he'll be solid, okay, but he'll never be a star. He'll never be as good as Miles Turner. Miles Turner, man. Really good basketball player, right? Big, 7 feet tall, has led the league in blocks multiple times, can step out and shoot it. It's great. Love Miles Turner. That's going to do it for the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. We'll start getting ready for that Dolphins game on Sunday. The Dan Dockett Show, the best sports show in the state of Indiana, follows my show from noon to 3. The Dan Dockett Show is coming your way next.